I am not a Peterson hater. In fact, in this video, I believe I will be following some of his best advice.
So if you're going to stand up for something, stand up for your truth. It'll shape you because people will respond and object and tell you why you're a fool and a biased moron and why you're ignorant. And then if you listen to them, you'll be just that much less like that the next time you say something.
So let me try to aim for the truth. Dr. Peterson, I don't understand what you mean when you say you are not interested in who is right in an argument.
But I've had guests that I regretted having, for example, because the conversation, I couldn't stop the conversation from degenerating into an argument. I'm not interested in the game of who's right. It's such a dull game. I quit playing that game like in 1986. It's like, you're right? Go, have it your way.
The way I see it, in most arguments, people consider being right as presenting a position that is closer to the truth than whatever else is being said. For example, in Peterson's discussion with Kathy Newman, when he said that to speak the truth you have to risk offending someone, he was right. He said something true.
In order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I have exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
Gotcha.
You have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head. Yeah, it took a while.
It did, yeah.
It took a while.
On this point, Peterson is right, and Kathy Newman herself identifies it. Through the discussion, we got closer to truth. So when you, Dr. Peterson, express regret over a popular discussion you had with Destiny, I don't know how to feel about it.
But I thought it ended well, you and Destiny.
Yeah.
You know? Because you even said, like, hey, we're getting everything out here. We're trying to come to something, and sometimes you have to be a little unruly in how you seek it out orally, you know?
The problem with I found that likely I had the most qualms about that podcast of any podcast I've done. Well, the reason is see, I learned this when I was like 24. I learned that I had a proclivity to battle verbally to be right.
Okay.
Right. And that was a status thing. Mm-hmm. I'm right, you're wrong. So, that redounds to my credit. I use my verbal intelligence as a weapon of dominance. Well, I stopped doing that when I was like 23. I thought, that's the prideful worship of the Luciferian intellect. It's a really bad idea. Like, seriously, it's a seriously bad idea. And so I don't like talking to people who want to be right. And Destiny wants to be right.
The problem is that not striving to be right seems dangerously close to embracing some form of epistemic relativism. What I believe happened with Destiny is that two people engaged in a fruitful and insightful discussion, in which sometimes Peterson happened to be wrong. Sometimes Destiny was closer to the truth, such as during the exchange on the use of force in society.
It certainly wasn't only the left that stampeded toward the forced COVID vaccine debacle, but it was most surprising to me that it emerged on the left, because the left at least had been protected against the depredations of gigantic predatory corporations by their skepticism of the gigantic enterprises that can engage in regulatory capture, and that just vanished.
Is it not possible that maybe people looked and they said, hey, if all the governments, all the institutions, all the schools, all the private companies across all the countries around the world are saying the same thing, maybe it is the case that this vaccine just helps. Is that not possible?
Oh, sure. Of course it's possible, but that didn't mean it was right.
Well,
they used force. They used force.
We use force for all sorts of things in terms of public health.
We don't generally use force to invade people's bodies.
How long have vaccine mandates been a thing? In Canada, the United States, and the entire world?
I don't think they should have been a thing.
That's great if you don't think they should have been, but when you say we don't generally use force, we absolutely use force. We've enforced vaccines for a long time. It's an important part of public health.
Fair enough.
I thought Destiny was also right when he pointed out that, to some extent, we all have to place some trust in certain institutions or corporations.
Do you really think that you're in a position to evaluate the scientific credibility of the trials for the vaccines, do you?
No,
really?
I don't. So I have to trust.
Then what are you
doing?
I have to do. I don't trust them. I looked at the bloody data.
First of all, you have to trust third parties to some extent. When you go outside...
I don't have to trust...
Of course you do. You do every day. When you turn the keys in your car, you hope your engine doesn't explode. When you're drinking water, you hope that the public water or whatever tap or bottled water you got it out of isn't contaminated or poisoned with cholera.
I don't do that as a consequence of consensus.
No, you of course you do.
No, I don't. I do that as a consequence of observing multiple times that when I put the goddamn key in the ignition, the truck started.
Why do you know it's going to start the 50th or the 100th time? How many times do you wear
with me?
I'm not playing Hume. You don't know if the denim in those jeans isn't leaking into your bloodstream. To some extent, we have to trust third-party institutions to make determination.
Except when they use force. How about that?
Especially when they use force. We trust the police officers. We trust the judicial system.
We do. We on the left trust the police, do we?
To some extent, do we? If somebody's breaking into your house, who do you call?
Them.
I'm not a defunder, but if somebody's breaking into your house, you can be the most defund person in the world. Who are you going to call? Are you going to call your neighbor? Are you going to call Joe Biden? Are you going to call Obama? Are you going to call the Black Panthers? You're going to call the cops.
These points were not rhetorical stratagems, nor appeals to emotion or authority. They were substantive facts about reality brought forth to directly challenge Peterson's arguments. Substance, not rhetoric. I believe it's important not to confuse the two things. In any case, overall, I thought the debate was great. I didn't sense any malevolence or a Luciferian intellect taking over. Instead, I saw two people both genuinely seeking to be right, engaging in good faith and correcting each other in order to get closer to the truth.
Being bipartisan or having a collection of people in a certain area and having different people together, just that in and of itself without anything else happening, I think produces a good, at least for a democratic society. For instance, I would agree that school, maybe not faculty, but administrators are very, 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 very far left today. Dangerously so. I don't have to talk to you about this, obviously. But I think part of the responsibility to that, rests at the feet of conservatives who, instead of maintaining participation in the system, decide that they're going to throw their hands up and disengage. When I go and I see...
Or be forced out.
Or be forced out, sure.
in my case,
that's fine. Example. Yeah, sometimes it can happen. But I think that often, rather than accepting being forced out, or rather than encouraging other people to disengage, the engagement has to happen. Mm-hmm. It can't be I'm losing faith in the system, so all of us are going to go here and do their own thing. It has to be no, we're going to be here in these conversations, whether you like it or not, because in a democracy, sometimes the guy you don't like wins. Sometimes the policy that you don't like is enforced. Sometimes a guy you don't like is somebody you have to share an office or a classroom with, and we need to be okay with that. And I'm worried that the internet is driving people into these very homogenous but very polarized groups.
The data on that, by the way, aren't clear. Whatever's driving polarization doesn't seem to be as tightly related to the creation of those internal bubbles as you might think. I've looked at a number of studies that have investigated to see whether people are being driven into homogenized information bubbles, and it isn't obvious that that's the case directly, although the polarization that you're pointing to, that you're concerned about, that seems to be clearly happening.
It troubles me greatly that both Dr. Peterson and Destiny have concluded that the conversation was bad. It makes me worry about the future of our societies. I believe that discussions like these are vital for helping an increasingly fractured world understand opposing viewpoints and reduce out-group hatred.
The alternative to talking is fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when we stop talking, it's not like the disagreements are going to go away.
Yeah.
We will start fighting.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably and for marriages too, even.
Talking, right, absolutely. And talking can be very painful because a conversation can kill one of your cherished beliefs, and you will suffer for that, although maybe it'll also help you.
Mm-hmm.
But the alternative to that, death by offense, is death. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So better to substitute the abstract argumentation for the actual physical combat.
For sure.
Right.
Sometimes the worst relationships are the ones where...
Hopefully with this video I have undergone the risk of offending some of you listening for a good cause.